Hal Holbrook, this is the night before the Illinois State University concert for Mark Twain tonight, and I must say it's a real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much.
You know, I'm trying to think. It was back probably a year ago for you, maybe even longer than that, when you worked with some Illinois State University people around the Springfield area.
Yeah, it was. It was almost a year ago.
And now I notice that they're going to plan on doing, I think, 3 more movies in this state. I don't know what the trend is for motion pictures in Illinois, but I noticed that there are 3 more in the planning stages.
Oh, I didn't know that, but I knew that they were, trying to encourage movie companies to shoot here.
Uh-huh. The show, of course, that'll be on tonight is Mark Twain Tonight. This is a show that I think you've been doing since, 1955 at least.
Yes, I think after the first of the year, I'm beginning my silver anniversary season. Sounds unbelievable.
When did you first discover that you'd become Mark Twain?
Well, I haven't discovered that yet, but I first started working on the character in 1947, 48, my last year in college. Was then to be a part of a 2-person show that my first wife and I went out and toured around the country, first in high schools.
That was called what? Great Personalities, I think.
Something pretentious like that, yes. You had to give it a cultural title in order to sell it to the schools in those days. So we gave it a very cultural title. Theater of Great Personalities, I think we called it. And we'd arrive at these high schools down in Texas and Oklahoma, and the minute you get out of the car, some kid would start yelling, "Oh, Romeo," and they'd give you, and the football team sat in the first 2 rows in the auditorium. The principal of the school introduced you, frightened to death of the students, and then ran away and left you there to face them, and it was really an experience in learning how to hold audiences, I'll tell you. We played morning assemblies, 45 minutes. It was really like being in a bull ring.
You added on to it, I take it, lengthwise as the time went on?
Well, I'm a little off the subject there because the Twain thing was just one sketch or routine, you might say, among many others. We had quite a few characters that we did, my first wife and I, a whole bevy of them, actually. And the Twain sketch was a number that we often ended the show with because it was funny and people liked it. And she played an interviewer. It was a burlesque of what you and I are doing now, and based on Twain's little sketch about that.
Let's see, if I'm trying to think about Mark Twain, I think he died about 1910 or so, and I think he lived to be about 75 years old, right?
That's right, 74 and something, and he died in 1910.
Was he the type of guy that would do much what you're doing in front of a group of people? I must say that, I've read some of the stories, the celebrated frog and all of those kind of things. But as far as my actual knowledge of Samuel Clemens, I think I could learn a lot just by talking to you.
Well, to begin with, I am recreating something that he did. I have not, it's not like taking Abraham Lincoln or something and talking to someone else and, trying to give you a picture of Lincoln. I mean, literally, Twain was not only a great popular writer in this country, but he was the fair-haired boy of the lecture circuit in those days. He made a great deal of money going around the country. In fact, he went around the world giving what they called lectures in those days, but in his case, very funny monologues. He would just spend an evening making people laugh. And it's kind of a vaudeville type of thing, you might say, except that, well, it's a long story, but anyway, in those days, making you, it was considered a bit irreverent to make you laugh. It was supposed to be all in the line of culture or something, but he went in and made people laugh, and anyway, he was very popular, and he did that for the whole last half of his life once he got going professionally. And it was always done kind of in tandem with his career as a writer. So what I'm doing is just recreating what he literally did on the stage, that's all.
When you say just, though, that's a big just, because you're not only saying what he said, but you're saying it in much the same way that he said it, I take it, because if I'm not mistaken, I think I read someplace where you've listened to recordings of his voice and tried to pause like he paused, and You literally become him, don't you?
Well, I try to, much as I can, yeah.
I guess you've probably been written up in more makeup books for college theater courses than anybody because of the classic makeup. I know there are shots of you being made up in various stages. Did that come out of your ideas, or was that something that was put together by some television people?
No, I've always done my own makeup. The only time I never did my makeup was the one time that I did it as a television special, a long 90-minute affair in which we had to do constant, very, very close shots, and so we used a great deal of rubber, and a very great makeup artist named Dick Smith did the makeup for that. The stage makeup is, in many cases, quite rather different in the technique used.
Does that get to be uncomfortable? Or maybe that's a dumb question. I don't know. I'm trying to think. After maybe 2 hours on stage wearing all of this rubber jazz, does it get on you?
No, you get used to it. The thing that's difficult is that it takes a good full fat 3.5 hours to put it on before every show, so it gets to be a very long day. You work under pressure of having to get it done exactly in time to go on, and so you got 3.5 hours and you can't fool around, and you just push on for 3.5 hours, and you finish, you get up, go on stage for 2 hours, and then afterwards it's more relaxing, but you do spend another hour and a half getting it off and cleaning the glue out of your hair and eyebrows and things like that, and cleaning all the pieces. You have to clean the wig, you have to clean the eyebrows, mustache, the nose.
I don't mean to get too technical, but I know a lot of stage makeup looks good from a distance, but if you were very close, you'd realize that there was, a lot of makeup put on. How about in the case of Mark Twain?
Well, I guess you'll just have to come and look, won't you?
Still, I'll be at a distance, so it'd be kind of hard to tell.
Well, let me respond by saying that most of that 3.5 hours you would never see if you were beyond the 5th or 6th row. Most of the 3.5 hours is devoted to trying to fool the people in the first couple of rows.
That's a very good answer to that question. I was going to ask you, you've done this for now, over 20 years, portraying Mark Twain. Does it get to be old hat, or does it become a chore to stay in character and really concentrate on doing the same thing over and over?
Depends on how much you do it. It depends on whether let me put it another way. I don't do the show very much for the reason that, one of the major reasons is that I don't want to get tired of doing it. And if I go out and I do too many shows at once, I do get tired. The other way that I've tried to keep it fresh is to constantly add new material. I've started out with 2 hours, and I've got, 13 or 14 hours of material now. And after I've gone out on the road and done a couple shows and kind of got myself into the swing of it, when I go out on stage, I don't program in advance. I just pick it as I go along. The programming is spontaneous. I don't mean for anyone to misunderstand me. I don't make up what I'm saying. It's all memorized routines, you might say, but they're all of different length, and they all belong in different places. And like when I'm 10 minutes into the show, I can go in one of 3 or 4 ways, and then about 6 or 7 minutes later, after the next routine, I can go in one of 2 or 3 ways, and then after 2 more minutes, I can go in one of 4 or 5 ways, you see? And so I always have choices, and that's one way I keep the thing fresh, is to try not to, get myself carved in cement there, so I can't move around.
They say Jack Benny was the king of the pause makers, and pausing is very important, but I would think that your delivering of the lines on a lot of the Mark Twain material has to have every bit as much timing, maybe even more so, because a lot of it sounds straight, and then when the audience starts to think about it, there's some humor there, and they catch it. That to me would be a real trick.
Well, the pause was one of Mark Twain's great trademarks, As a matter of fact, he wrote a whole essay about the use of the pause in front of an audience. He loved pulling jokes on the audience with pauses. Sometimes he would just stand and stare into space for just as long as he thought an audience could stand it, just to try to frighten them or make them whatever, you know. And then after a while he would make them start laughing. He would do all kinds of tricks like that. He was really a performer at heart. And when I started working on the material, I probably did it faster than I do now, but as I relaxed into it. I started in a nightclub, incidentally, when I started putting this show together. I helped run a club, actually, for 7 months. I started in one club, and then a girl and I opened a club. She was a singer down at Greenwich Village in New York, and I stayed there 7 months, and I developed the first 2.5 hours of my material in that club, and I learned a great deal about pauses and timing working in that club.
There's an art to it, definitely. And I guess if you have an off night, maybe it shows in your own mind.
Oh, an off night is not very pleasant, is it?
At any rate, you notice I've talked for now about 5 minutes or so, and I have not brought up the Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford movie that you were in fairly recently. All the President's Men.
Yeah. That wasn't very recent. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I guess it shows you how fast time flies. Talking about pausing here. Do you have any favorites? Gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the shows that you've done. Obviously, people have had a chance to see you for a long time. Do you like working films, or would you sooner do something live on stage?
Well, I think that I really believe that the stage is much more rewarding and satisfying for an actor. I used to hear people say that when I was young, and I didn't quite understand what they meant. But now that I've had some experience at all the various mediums, I think there's no doubt that an audience, that working in front of an audience gives an actor much more a sense of importance, responsibility, and everything else, reward than he gets in front of just the camera. See, when you're on the stage in a play, you have rehearsed it and all, but you start the performance, you start your character here, and you go through the evening like a ball in flight, and you make it end somewhere. There's an arc, a whole flight that takes place, and you are driving it. You're in control. You're flying the airplane. And there's a lot of craft in that, how you fly it. The little tiny movements that you make, the little variations every night, and the little banking here, and the zooming there, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. All the colors that come into an evening of a performance. And the actor is in charge in the theater, not in the film. And not even in television, though there he is a little more in television. Because in television you do it all in broken up little sequences, then they take it, and editors and director and all take it and work it all around, and you're just a piece of machinery. You're just a gear or a toggle.
You could turn in a sterling performance and somebody could edit it wrong and ruin it for you.
Well, the other way around, they make you look good too, but you're just a piece of hardware. You don't, when you finish a film, you don't have the same sense of fulfillment that you get when you finish a performance on the stage in front of a live audience that you have worked with all night long. It's like sitting and watching some guy skiing down the hill and going out and skiing yourself down the hill. That's about the difference.
Well, people are going to be able to watch you ski, or whatever happens tonight at Illinois State University. And the show, I think it's a one performance only. The only time you're going to be performing in Illinois this year.
Well,
so far, at least.
So far, yeah.
Certainly don't want to discourage any further bookings or future bookings by any means, but it's been a real thrill talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken.